Go.
All set.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Public Improvement Commission hearings of today, April 29, 2021. Todd, if you could be so kind and do a roll call to identify the commission members for today.
Camera. Good morning, everyone. Public Works Representative,
Parag Jayasinghe,
Property Management,
Robert Melvin, present.
Transportation Department,
Amy Gordon.
Boston Water and Sewer,
Denise Devlin.
Inspectional Services,
Brian Ronan, present.
and Disabilities Commission.
Sarah Leung.
All present, Para. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Living. First item, hearing minutes. At the request of the Public Improvement Commission staff, the acceptance of minutes of the PIC hearings held on April 15, 2021.
I'll make a motion to accept April 15th minutes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
ISD, second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Meeting minutes approved. First item on our agenda under the utility pole hearings. Item number 1, on a joint petition by Verizon New England Inc. and Eversource Energy for a pole installation within Soldiers Field Road, which is a public way in Brighton, to install 2 new utility poles to be located on its southerly side at address numbers 21 and 35, generally south of Soldiers Field Road.
Good morning, I'm Catherine Flaherty. I'm on here representing Eversource Electric for the installation of those 2 poles that we're requesting to put into Soldiers Field Place. And that's to supply electric power for 1550 Soldiers Field Road.
Catherine, do you have any plans or anything you would like to share, or is it understood amongst?
I believe the plans were sent in for the hearing. I don't have any.
Todd, do you have anything which you can support Ms. Flaherty for this hearing purposes? Thank you, Mr. Living. Comments, Ms. Flaherty, I'm sorry, I missed. So this is about, can you give a little bit of background?
So Eversource Electric would like to install the 2 poles. You can see 3166 over 3x the left, 3166 over 4x to the right. And these are to provide, in order to provide electric service for new construction at 1550 Soldiers Field Road. These are in Soldiers Field Place.
Thank you, Catherine. Comments by PIC staff who has looked at these plans?
We're all set with this. The applicant worked with us to move the poles to the curb line rather than the back of the sidewalk to improve pedestrian accessibility, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Todd. Comments by commission members? Hearing none. Any comments by audience members? Hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion to approve the first item under the utility pole hearings.
I'll make a motion to approve a joint petition by Verizon New England and Eversource Energy for a pole installation within Soldiers Field Place as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstained? Hearing none, motion passes. First item under our public hearings segment of our agenda, public hearing number 1, on a petition by MCAF Winthrop LLC for the making of specific repairs within Franklin Street, public way, Boston proper, located generally at address numbers 40 through 74 between Arch Street and Hollis Street, consisting of curb realignment, sidewalks, and roadway reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps, special education, street lights, lighting infrastructure, street trees, planters, landscaping, street furniture, bike racks, stormwater storm drain infrastructure, traffic signal infrastructure, public art, and a raised cycle track. All of this was introduced under new business on April 15th of this year, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Specific Repair Plan, Franklin Street, Downtown Crossing, 10 sheets dated April 29, 2021.
Great. Good morning. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Ms. Thomas.
Great. Thank you. My name is Hallie Thomas. I am here with MCAP Winthrop, a division of Millennium Partners. I'm here with Kathy McNeil with Millennium Partners, as well as Shauna Gillis-Smith and Curtis Puncher with Ground Landscape Architects, Robbie Burgess and Hans Kubler with Howard Stein Hudson, Brian Taff and Jess Fernandez with Suffolk Construction, and Anita Laricella with the Business Improvement District. So thank you all for your time today. I'm here with Taunting Crescent, which Franklin Street and Downtown Crossing. I'm just going to give a quick overview and then I'll hand it over to the design team. Let me go. There we go. So, So Taunting Crescent is on Franklin Street in the Downtown Crossing area between between Arch Street and Holly Street. So a little bit of the history of Taunting Crescent. This is a picture of Taunting Crescent back in 2015. It is a one-way, 3-lane that bottlenecks down to 1 lane. So in 2015, part of Millennium Partners' development of Millennium Tower, we were asked to study the street and propose a design that narrows Franklin Street down to 1 lane and reclaim some of the street for pedestrian use. So this is a picture of what Franklin Street used to look like. And then in 2016, the City of Boston did a test pop-up of what that new geometry of the street would look like. It was a very successful pop-up, and a part of that, the city asked Millennium to do a temporary tactile pedestrian plaza. So this was installed in 2018. It was really a collaboration with Public Works, BTD, BPDA, the BID, and Millennium Partners sponsored this. So this has been, like I said, it was constructed in 2018. So we have had about 3 years to really study and test this geometry. We did several parking studies, traffic studies to make sure this new configuration worked. We were at PIC in 2018 when we constructed this. So now we are here to talk about the permanent construction, which is the same geometry as the temporary. So from here, I'll hand it over to Shauna to talk about the permanent design. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commission members. So as Hallie has mentioned, the geometry with a minor modification that Hans will speak to in a moment is really the same as was tested during the Tactical Plaza. This will be a permanent public space, and following the same geometry with a cycle track that is outboard of the plaza itself. It is retaining the existing sidewalk, which is a combination of concrete and the stone pavers, and installing a new poured concrete sidewalk immediately adjacent to it that will provide lateral passage along smooth passage along the overall length of the plaza, as well as the concrete pavers that have been reviewed by disability and are installed in Shoppers Park in the bulk of the plaza. We'll have a number of permanent planters that are scattered throughout the length of the project, leaving space in between for movable tables and chairs, as well as having benches or seating areas associated with each of the planters. In the middle of the largest planter is the location for the relocated sculpture that had been in the middle of Franklin Street, and that location is being reviewed with the Arts Commission. I think we could move to the next slide, which is giving a vision of what this will look like. And you can see the bike racks located along the street, the planters that have seating associated with them, and then the location of the, some of the movable tables and chairs in the background. And the images of the plant palette that will be located within the planters, there will be no irrigation. It will be maintained, the planting, using the same tree species for the street trees that are located in Shoppers Park, so to carry the language a little bit down the street. Now I'll transfer it over to Hans to give to go into more detail.
Great. Thank you, Shauna, and thank you all for having us here today. As has been mentioned, this is a permanent solution to following what the existing plaza is out there with some permanent features. As Shauna alluded to, we have some enhanced pedestrian facilities out there around the plaza, which include some accessible paths of travel with the new concrete sidewalk and the new concrete area at the corner of Arch Street and Franklin Street. At that corner, we're providing 2 ADA compliant wheelchair ramps on the plaza side, as well as 1 new ADA compliant wheelchair ramp at the southwest corner of Franklin Street and Arch Street. And we've been in contact with the Disabilities Commission to seek a variance for the wheelchair ramps at the other side of the plaza. Additionally, out here, as Shauna had mentioned, there is a cycle track that runs adjacent to the plaza area will be in place of the existing bike lane that is at the roadway grade. This new cycle track will have vertical separation from the travelway as well as the plaza area to further define it. The travel lane itself will now have a single defined travel lane as opposed to the wide area that was once out there several years ago. And this will also have defined parking that remains out there along the opposite side of the plaza. We have been in contact with the Boston Fire Department with this new geometry to make sure that they are okay with our new travel lane widths, and they have accepted those. We also have some new streetlights out there in coordination with the Boston Street Lighting. There'll be a new light pole and new fixtures out there to further enhance this area, make it more welcoming for all people to hang out and also to just pass through. And then we also have some coordination that we've had with the Boston Water Sewer Commission to add in some additional drainage out here, as well as relocate one of the hydrants that's currently out there. So now I'll hand it back over to Hallie for any questions.
Kathy, did you want to?
No, I just want to thank everyone. We are working with the city to execute an LMI where Millennium will construct this, and we're working with the Boston Improvement District to help maintain it going forward. We have not finalized that agreement, but I am asking for approval today, subject to an LMI being executed.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas. Thank you, Ms. McNeil. Couple of thoughts. When this thing gets constructed, Kathy, if you could make sure the following gets done. First of all, that the work has been done to the specifications of your design consultant, so that the design consultant needs to certify that the work was done per the plans that are being put forth in front of the commission. So that's one. Two, that the city's public works department and or its sister agencies that have any responsibility in any level for these items, whether that is the maintenance or not, that the city buys into it. And the third party is that the Boston Improvement District, the big team members, that they have agreed to the items that has been constructed, that is to be their responsibility for maintenance. So that way all parties are nodding their head before we do the ribbon cutting and all of that good stuff. So that way there won't be any moments of awkwardness subsequently downstream. You sort of follow what I'm saying, right?
I do, thank you.
Awesome. And again, my compliments to all of you for the diligent work which you all have done. And Kathy, hopefully you all can resolve the remaining items on the LMI. We obviously can't record this in the registry until that gets done. So hopefully you all have accomplished much, and what is left is minimal. Is that a fair assumption on my part, or is it something more than that?
I'm sorry, we do plan to get this done very shortly so we can start construction by the 1st of June.
Awesome. At this point, I'll open it up for comments or concerns by fellow commission members.
I just want to confirm that we've received the draft variance application from the proponent, and we're currently reviewing it, and we look forward to working with the team to see this variance through.
Thank you, Sarah. Any other comments by commission members? Hearing none, any comments by PIC staff and or the audience?
Mr. Rob Whitney would like to speak. Go ahead, Rob.
Hi, this is Rob Whitney. I just had a question. I know this, I used to work down in this area many years ago, and I know this was originally designed by Charles Bulfinch back in the mid-1800s, this crescent space, and there originally was a park in this current space for the plaza design. I was wondering whether there was a reason why there was very little greenery being proposed for this space other than the planting boxes. There used to be trees, large canopies of trees in this space. I was wondering why that doesn't seem to be part of the project. I think it would be great to recreate that original design from Charles Bulfinch, as well as it would obviously add to our reduction of carbon footprints by having more carbon-loving trees in that space. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Whitney. Very interesting, and I wish we had easy access to the document that showed the Charles Bulfinch park and the tree that remained after the Great Fire. There was a Great Fire and there's one large tree that remained. We actually did study what we could do to actually recreate that, but unfortunately, because of the myriad of utilities, given the fact that this was a street, we struggled with trying to do any kind of in-ground planting, which is why we ended up having to do the above-ground plants, because you just couldn't get the greenery in, unfortunately. But I agree with you. It was a beautiful space, and we do have photographic evidence of what was done there prior.
Right. Seen that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitney, for participating today. Any further comments by audience members?
I see
Hearing
none.
none, at this point, I'd like to get a motion for this item.
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by MCAF Winthrop LLC for the making of specific repairs within Franklin Street as read into the record by the chair.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed or abstained? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, public hearing number 2 on a petition by the City of Boston Public Works Department for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Roxbury and Boston proper, consisting of curb realignment, sidewalk, roadway, and bridge deck reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps, specialty pavement, and storm drain infrastructure. Dalton Street between Boylston Street and Scotia Street, Boylston Street generally between Dalton Street and Hereford Street, Hereford Street generally at Boylston Street. This was introduced under new business on April 15th of this year, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Specific Repair Plans, Dalton Street Bridge, Boston, 6 sheets dated April 28, 2021.
Good morning, everyone. Joe Fleury with the Boston Public Works Department. Joined here today by Faisal Husseini of Niche Engineering, who's our traffic and civil consultant, and Mark Thompson with Jacobs Engineer, the structural consultant for the project. As introduced last new business 2 weeks ago, we're proposing some improvements to generally the sidewalks at the either bridge approach on the Dalton Street Bridge to improve pedestrian access and safety. The larger project is a bridge rehabilitation. We're generally through the substructure work and getting geared up to do the surface and associated repairs that we're going to show you here today. Pass it to Faisal Husseini, who'll kind of run through the presentation, the repairs and specific repairs in detail, and we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fleury.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and member of the Commission. My name is Faisal Husseini with Niche Engineering. We are the designer on this project. As you can see from my screen, this is the limit of the work, and this work encompasses basically the roadway upgrade, basically, and also the bridge construction. The majority of the work is really bridge structural work. And as you can see, the project does run over the I-90, the MBTA commuter rail lines, and also there is a ramp that serves the Heinz Auditorium or Heinz Convention Center in this area. So the extent of the structure is pretty long. The scope of our work is really mainly to bring the area into compliance with ADA. So there is some sidewalk construction and some pedestrian ramps upgrades. This is an image. You're looking north on Dalton Street, facing Boylston Street, and toward the right up front, there is the Boston Fire Department, and then the Heinz on the right-hand side. This is standing on Boylston Street, looking east, and where the fire department on the left-hand side, and the Heinz right across from the view. This is the orange area shows the limit of the structural work of the bridge over the Interstate Highway 90 and the MBTA, and as I said, the limit of our work on the street side is really limited to some of the sidewalks. You can see the sidewalk construction around the fire station. And right in front of the station, it was a revision to the design since our last the new business that we had last time. So now we are able to make the entire sidewalk compliant, and the limit of the project does end where these dotted line is. On the other side of the dotted line, there are some pedestrian ramps that need to be reconstructed, and that will be part of a separate project that we are doing. On Dalton Street itself, there is a section of the sidewalk in here that is really non-compliant currently, and we are making it compliant with the bump out a little bit at the Heinz loading area. There's a curb cut in here for a loading area. So you can see that to help us with the sloping, we had to bump out on both sides of that access ramp. The additional stuff as well since last meeting is these two ramps, two areas on both sides of Scotia Street, where we are building pedestrian ramps that are compliant. This is the pavement marking signing plans. It shows you kind of the lane configuration on Dalton Street. We will have 2 continuous lanes from Scotia up to the Boylston, where the left lane will turn left for Boylston Street, and then the right lane will be for the through and right turn movements. The signal work is really very minimal. Because there's currently a median island on Dalton Street, and we are removing that. So what we took some of the signal equipment, the signal indication that faces the fire station, and then we put it on a post on the side, and that post has been being changed to 16 foot high to install a video detection for the on Dalton Street approach. And these circles kind of indicate that the detection zone for the signals. On the opposite side, we were able to kind of bulb out in here because we have parking on both sides. So we're able to improve visibility and safety for pedestrian crossing. We are able to build a pedestrian ramp in here. And then at the corner of the fire station, that was kind of pretty tight area. We were able to build 2 pedestrian ramps. So we coordinated all that work with the Disability Commission, and we went over their comments and concerns. With that, we'll end the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hussaini. Comments by fellow commission members?
Oh, yes. Good morning, Faisal. This is Denise Devlin from Boston Water and Sewer.
Good
I
morning.
just wanted to let you know, we plan on working in this area on Dalton Street. Right now it's scheduled to spring 2022, but we're planning on lining our water pipes. Right now we don't plan that that's going to be an impact of your work, but if there's for some reason, if we feel like we need, to have access to, then we need access to the water pipes while you're doing work, we'll just coordinate with you.
Yep, we've been talking with Carrie McGuire and his staff on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments?
I'd just like to thank coordinating with us this week on some of the revisions to the plan. We're really excited about these accessibility improvements and look forward to the project being completed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Joseph, one quick question. I should know the answer to this. The street lights along this corridor is going to be consistent with whatever the lighting standards we have for the Back Bay area, correct?
I do not believe, Faisal, correct me if I'm wrong, we're proposing any changes to the lighting system.
No, we don't have lighting currently part of this project.
Okay.
We can't hear you.
Sorry. Comments by PIC staff or the audience?
None.
That being said, I'd like to hear a motion regarding public hearing number 2.
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by the City of Boston Public Works Department for the making of specific repairs in Dalton Street, Boylston Street, and Hereford Street as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next item on today's agenda, public hearing number 3 on a petition by the City of Boston Public Works Department for making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Boston proper, consisting of curb realignment, sidewalk and roadway reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps, specialty pavement, storm drain infrastructure, traffic signal infrastructure, and a raised crosswalk. Beacon Street, generally between Bowden Street and Joy Street, Park Street southeast of Beacon Street, Bowden Street north of Beacon Street. This was introduced under new business on April 15th of this year, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division Specific Repair Plans, Beacon Street Improvements, Boston, sheets dated April 22nd, 2021.
Good morning, Public Improvement Commission. I'm Zach Wasmuth, Chief Design Engineer for the Boston Public Works Department. I'm joined by Faisal Husseini from Niche Engineering, who is the design consultant of this on this project. I'll walk through this this presentation here for the obviously that we presented at the last meeting. Just a recap of where we are. You know, we're very excited about this project, about making improvements out here for pedestrians. We've had extensive coordination meetings, again, with the State House. We have some meetings coming up with them as well, just to coordinate this project with some work that they have going on, installing some bollards in front of their facility. And we've met with State Rep Livingstone, Senator Boncourt. We've met with Councilors Bach and Flynn. We've met with the Parks Department, Friends of the Public Garden, specifically in coordination with the Shaw Memorial work, which is ongoing. We've met with the Disabilities Commission. We've met with the Freedom Trail Commission and gotten approval for the the alterations to the Freedom Trail that are associated with this project. We had an advisory hearing with the Beacon Hill Architectural Commission, and we are on the agenda for official approval on that we will be on the agenda for that on May 20th. And we got some commentary from them, and I'll get into that at the advisory hearing. We met earlier this week on the 27th with the Landmarks Commission and got approval from them. And we have had meetings with representatives from the Beacon Hill Civic Association as well to work out some of the details on the materials for this project. Just jumping into the plans in an overview to remind us of where we're looking. This is the location highlighted in red is what we're looking at here at the intersection of Park Street and Beacon Street and extending down to Bowden Street in between the State House and the Boston Common. Current condition, as we all know, very narrow sidewalks. This is a major tourist destination located on the Freedom Trail. Lots of pedestrian travel here. We wanted to increase the sidewalk area to better accommodate the pedestrian needs, make this a safer intersection for all users. Just taking a look at the plan view, here's what we proposed, and there's some minor modifications since the last time we presented that I will go over with you based on the conversations that we had that I mentioned before with the Disabilities Commission, the Freedom Trail Commission, and Boston Architectural Commission, as well as the Beacon Hill Civic Association. So, in general, this is the geometry is the same. We're proposing to push this narrow sidewalk out to be 15 feet. We have this notch in here for the tour bus and trolley tour parking area. The bus stop will remain here. This sidewalk will all be in concrete. Anything on this side of the street is concrete. The sidewalk on the opposite side of the street will be constructed in brick. It will be a new wire cut brick, but the size of the brick will be such that matches the existing size and transitions well to the surrounding City Hall pavers. So at the transition points, it will be a wire cut brick. It'll be accessible, but it transitions better to the brick in that environment. Again, just showing the lane configurations, 2 lanes in this direction, and then we give a little more definition over on this side. Between Park Street and Bowden Street, so that folks can queue up in the appropriate lanes, whether they're taking a left on Bowden or queue to go straight to continue down Beacon Street. This crossing is proposed to be raised here to add some additional safety and accessibility for pedestrians. So in the last version that you saw, we had talked about and I can get into, sorry, I didn't want to jump ahead, the materials here, but we shifted the Freedom Trail. We had originally had it more in the middle of this sidewalk section, but based on our conversations with the Freedom Trail Commission, as well as the Disabilities Commission, it was determined that we'd like to have this as more of the flat, accessible path of travel. So it basically remains in its current location approximately here. It just gets shifted a little bit to the right over here to align with the new crossing over here. And as far as materials, and we can get into that, but this was initially proposed to be the thermoplastic treatment that looks like a brick inlay, but we're actually going to go with the brick inlay on this side as well. And we'll just do the thermoplastic treatment here, and then we'll have the brick inlay on this side. The other adjustment that we made was specific to these ramps in the previous version that you had seen. We had designed it such that there was a level landing and then a slope, and that slope had a concrete slope with the detectable panel in it, as well as concrete wings. We were able to tweak the design and the grading a little bit so that we could incorporate more of the brick in here. So now this all slopes to a level landing pad here, excuse me, that is brick, and then we'll have the detectable panel. The detectable panel will be the cast iron, will be framed with concrete. So it'll be very similar to this one, and that change we've made for both this ramp and this ramp, and discussed that with Beacon Hill Civic Association, as well as the Disabilities Commission and it seemed to be a happy compromise as far as materials and accessibility. So here's a rendering of what it might look like. Again, you can see the sidewalk bumped out over here, and the Freedom Trail going across, giving much more space for pedestrians. And here's a rendering down at the Bowden Street intersection. You can see here, this is where the raised crossing will be installed. And again, just to go over the materials again, this is the proposed treatment for the Freedom Trail marking over here. The brick inlay banded with the granite. Across the street, it will be the same thing, but obviously in the field of brick. We'll have the cast iron detectable warning panels, and we'll have the thermoplastic in the roadway itself for the crossing. And then here's just a look at the PIC plan itself, summarizing everything in plan format. And then just to look at the existing cross section. And we have worked extensively with the Friends of the Boston Common and the Parks Department with how this interfaces with the Shaw Memorial and their brick plaza. So that's this detail over here, which addresses and how those two marry together. So if there, I'll open it up now if there's any questions or clarifications.
Thank you, Mr. Mossman. Any comments by fellow commission members?
Oh, yes. Good morning, Zach. This is Denise Devon from Boston Wire and Sewer. We did have a couple of small comments. We are planning on working on the area near the Boston Common from Beacon Street, from Charles to Joy. At this time, we don't anticipate we'll be in your way. But if, we think we will be, we'll coordinate with you. And then just, a couple other minor details. The catch basins, we just want to make sure we have, within the limit of work, there's gutter mounts on all of them. Even if they're broken, they need to be replaced. And then the other thing we noticed was the utilities, not all utilities were shown on the PIC plans. I sent over a map to Raphael this morning. So, I mean, you probably have them. I don't know if you have them on the construction plans or not.
Okay. Yeah, we'll make sure that all the utilities show up on there. Absolutely. And yeah, any necessary coordination, just let us know. And yeah, we'll absolutely, definitely any existing gutter mounts within the limits of work will be replaced if they're broken, or we'll maintain them. So yes to all of those things.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Zach. Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Denise, do you have a sense of what time or when you might be doing your work? Because there seems to be somewhat of a coordination issue.
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I can get that for you. I knew it wasn't immediately. And I know you mentioned the last meeting you were trying to get that done right away. So I will get that to you, Zach. I can send it to you after the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Any further comments by commission members? Hearing none, comments by PIC staff and all members of today's audience.
Mr. Rob Whitney, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that the Beacon Hill Civic Association greatly thanks the Boston Public Works Department and Zach particularly for working with us on this project. We think it's going to be great. We appreciate all the effort that the Public Works Department has put into making this not only a greatly accessible new project area, but working with us to make it a great design as well. And we appreciate that. And we appreciate the Commission's interest in making this a good project as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Always appreciate your engagement. Any other comments by today's audience members?
I see none.
At this point, I'd like to hear a motion regarding public hearing number 3.
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by the City of Boston Public Works Department for the making of specific repairs in Beacon Street, Park Street, and Bowden Street as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, public hearing number 4, on a petition by Medical, Academic and Scientific Community Organization, also known as MASCO, for the making of specific repairs within Avenue Louis Pasteur, Public Way, Roxbury, located on its southeasterly side, southwest of Fenway, consisting of curb and sidewalk reconstruction, as well as new and relocated street trees, bioretention infrastructure, irrigation infrastructure, storm drain infrastructure, and landscaping. All introduced under new business on April 15th of this year, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division Specific Repair Plan, Avenue Louis Pasteur, Streetscape Pilot Project, Boston, 8 sheets dated March 3rd, 2021.
Good morning, Chairman Jayas Singh and Commission members. My name is Janice Henderson. I'm a senior planner at MASCO. I have with me today Kyle Zick, landscape architect with KZLA. Thank you so much for having us today. MASCO is a nonprofit serving the 22 member institutions in the Longwood medical and academic area. We're stewards of the LMA, including the trees on Avenue Pasteur. We're here before you this morning to go over a green infrastructure pilot project with you for your review that we presented 2 weeks ago at New Business. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Kyle. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to share my screen.
Maybe I'll just say that since we last saw you, we have submitted a red line LMI and 4 letters of support.
Thank you, Ms. Henderson.
All right, thank you, Jan. My name is Kyle Zick with Kyle Zick Landscape Architecture. I'm the consultant for MASCO on this. Our petition is for specific repairs to complete streetscape pilot project on Avenue Louis Pasteur. The image on the screen gives you a sense of the extent of the project. This is Avenue Louis Pasteur in the Fenway. Simmons College is in the background. We have about a 200-foot area along in the tree lawn of Avenue Louis Pasteur that is the pilot project. The location is at the intersection of the Fenway and Louis Pasteur, as I mentioned, up against where Simmons College is. We've been looking at the whole street, including the history. The street actually has quite a provenance. It was designed by the Olmsted brothers, and it was intended to connect the Emerald Necklace, this is the Fenway, to the Harvard Medical School, and to be a very formal boulevard. And that actually was implemented. We have historic photos. This is in front of Boston Latin School, where linden trees were planted as planned in a regular fashion. Those trees came to maturity in the early 2000s. You can see, looking toward the medical school, my back is to the Fenway. But those trees started to decline. Some of that just naturally from age, but also from all the urban conditions here. Compaction, pollution, construction, dogs, people. So, and MASCO has been a steward of these trees for decades and had arborists advised, done soil improvements, fertilization. But it's now at the point where they've had to look and see what really is the path forward for this street to still achieve that original vision, to have a beautiful boulevard connecting the Fenway to the medical school. And that's where we came in. We talked about this overall vision with Public Works, with Boston Parks, with the member institutions. Parks particularly encouraged us to do a pilot project because, it's a large undertaking and there are a lot of different factors at play here that influence the tree health. As we started to look at the design, we were also thinking that in 2020, 2021, that there's an opportunity for this streetscape to do much more than it was originally planned for 100 years ago. And by that, I mean there could be green infrastructure built into the project, still support those trees and have that same vision, but to treat the water from the sidewalk and from the street, particularly because the Muddy River is an impaired water body. So that's where the pilot project comes in. And it's a pilot project because we're evaluating two types of green infrastructure practices. So again, Avenue Louis Pasteur, the Fenway is here. And our pilot project is contained in this 200-foot area. Where you see trees and lawn bounded by temporary fencing, we have a subsurface water treatment and infiltration green infrastructure practice. Where you see the trees and this darker color, this is a rain garden also used to treat the stormwater. The two practices have equivalent watershed areas so that we can monitor their effectiveness over a 3-year period. And we have professors from Wentworth and from Simmons to help us monitor and actually provide data on the effectiveness of these green infrastructure practices. The rain garden has a concave landform where water comes in off of Louis Pasteur through a break in the curb to a sediment forebay and then would infiltrate, and the treatment happens in the soil and helps support the trees and the planting. The tree lawn practice, water comes in through a new catch basin and goes to subsurface perforated piping that then allows the water to be treated. In both cases, there's overflows that go back to the Boston water and sewer infrastructure. We did have an approved Boston water and sewer site plan in October of 2020. If I skip ahead, this is our PIC plans. Louis Pasteur is going horizontally on the page, Fenway here. This shows the proposed street trees, the rain garden practice, and then the infiltration practice. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Any comments or questions by fellow commission members? Hearing none, comments by PIC staff and all members of today's audience?
Nobody from the audience. The law department is still working with the project on the necessary LMI agreement, but I understand that they are very close with that.
Thank you, Mr. Limey. At this point, I'd like to hear a motion regarding public hearing number 4.
I'll make a motion to approve a petition by Masco for the making of specific repairs within Avenue Louis Pasteur, as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Zeke.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next item on today's agenda, public hearing number 5 on the joint petition by the Boston Planning and Development Agency and the Massachusetts Port Authority for the making of specific repairs within Charles Street, a public way, Charlestown, located at its intersection with 16th Street and consisting of curb and sidewalk reconstruction, and as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps, street lighting infrastructure, traffic signal infrastructure, and a guardrail opening. This was introduced on April 15, 2021, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repair Plan, Barry Park Access, Chelsea Street at 16th Street, Charlestown, 2 sheets dated March 22nd, 2021.
Thank you very much, and good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is William Epperson. I'm Director of Capital Construction for the Boston Planning and Development Agency. With me is my colleague Jason Ruggiero, as well as co-petitioners from Massport and members of the design team from HDR. As we introduced 2 weeks ago, the matter that brings us today before the Commission is the first step of a larger public access project that is sponsored by both the BPDA and Massport. We're seeking to make an important connection between the stretch of the harbor walk that exists in the Charlestown Navy Yard and those fragments that also exist along the Mystic River heading towards Sullivan Square. The component that we're discussing today is referred to as the Berryfield Connector. We're seeking approval to make modifications to the bridge rail, the sidewalk and curbing, as well as add a crosswalk across Chelsea Street to create a safe pedestrian connection from the Chelsea Street Bridge down to Berryfield, which would then lead to the Charlestown High School athletic fields, as well as the Little Mystic Channel recreation space. Other phases of the project unrelated to today's matter will continue this connection all the way to Ryan Playground at Sullivan Square. And just a reminder for folks, as we introduced last week, neither the BPDA nor Massport are abutting property owners, nor do we have any development at this location. This is a public improvement project that we are undertaking utilizing agreements with Massport, who has leased property from the BPDA. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Connor LeBlanc of Massport, who will introduce the rest of the team.
Great. Thanks so much, William. My name is Connor LeBlanc, and I'm a development manager with the Massport Real Estate Department and a member of the project team, along with my colleague, Amy Blake Baldwin, who I'll introduce in a moment, and our consultants from HDR that William mentioned earlier. So just to build off of William's introduction, there's been really a tremendous amount of collaboration between Massport and the BPDA, and we've also been working closely with various city departments to coordinate this project, as well as the Massachusetts Department of Transportation, to gather feedback and advance this, which as William mentioned, is located at a very complex site and touches a lot of different entities. So we're really proud of all the work that has been put in and the teamwork of everyone involved, particularly between the Massport team, the BPDA, as well as other folks at the city. So I think with that brief introduction, I'm just gonna turn things over to Amy, who is gonna talk a little bit more about the project details.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Connor and William. I appreciate the intros. My name is Amy Blake Baldwin, and I'm a project manager with the Capital Programs Department of Massport. And we were pleased to present this project to you 2 weeks ago. We recognize that this is a very complex site. I'm always amazed at how many entities are on this particular small little zone of property. So we're here for a crosswalk. We have with us HDR, Rock La Rochelle, and Pat McAlpine, who can speak to the technicalities of the details and how this design came to be. But if you could pull up the PIC plans, Rock, I'd appreciate it.
People call PIC.
Perfect. So at this particular site, we are focusing on the crosswalk that you can see in the three-dimensional images off to the left, as well as we're crossing Chelsea Street right here, just before the Chelsea Street Bridge. We're looking at the curb cut through, I think it's a 10 or 11 inch high curb, and then an opening at the bridge rail. And in addition, we're including signal modifications and pavement markings, all in the interest of pedestrian safety crossing this very busy street. And during the meeting 2 weeks ago, a number of questions were brought up, and we believe you should have the memo that was delivered yesterday that covered what we think we covered all the questions that were asked. If you'd like me to go into it, I can. Otherwise, I'm happy to open it up to you.
Amy, could you please go through the responses to the comments, because that's rather than saying.
Sure, I definitely can.
That will be better for the purpose of a public record.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So the first question and request was the formal response to the MASH waiver application by MassDOT. In the memo that we sent yesterday is the written response from Alex Bardot of MassDOT regarding the safety requirements around opening up the crash bridge rail. The second one's a thorough analysis of the street lighting in the intersection and in the general vicinity. You will see a multi-page response to that, including light levels. And we feel there is adequate lighting and it meets the requirements as given to us from the Boston Public Works Street Lighting Division. The third item was the request to split the currently designed Apex ramp. And so it's a very complex corner with everything that's going on. The existing ramp at the northeast corner is a radius of greater than 45 feet. And there's a number of utilities in that area that are where they are, and that we feel that it's still a compliant corner according to the design elements, and we outline that in the memo further. The fourth element that was requested to look at and discuss is flipping the ramp and the stair. And for the reasons of the existing structure, you can see in the yellow box, that's the foundation of the existing pier of the Tobin Bridge. And we want to be cognizant that MassDOT, who owns the bridge, will need access to it on occasion to make any repairs or updates to that structure, as well as for the buildability, if that's a word, of our structure. There's a lot going on there, and we need to give everybody the adequate space to perform their work and for us to perform ours. The other request was to show a 5-foot landing at the ramp. Right now, nope, you're good right there, Rock. That ramp for the stair that's going to be going down. So we have 5 feet from the curb to the initial crash bollards. So there's 5 foot clear there, and then there's an additional 10 or 11 feet beyond that to the stair in the beginning of the ramp down. And consider providing 5 foot clear between the vehicle crash structures. We have made that modification per the request of the Disabilities Commission.
Thank you, Amy. Amy, can you amplify the essence of Mr. Bardo's response to your request as to the opening of the railing of a bridge that belongs to the city of Boston? Can you amplify the essence of Mr. Bardo's response?
Sure. So the essence of, this is an existing crash rail, and as it is right now, it currently does not meet crash requirements. So we had to then request a waiver to create this opening and make it as safe as possible for both vehicles and pedestrians. We had additionally designed it so that what you see as the solid blocks there, they were lower. He requested that we make them full height and angled in such a way that should a vehicle hit one of them, they would not bounce down into the stair and ramp structure, but stay on the street side for everyone's safety.
So rather than putting words into the conversation, basically your design conforms to any and all comments articulated by Mr. Bardo of MassDOT?
Correct.
Would that be correct?
That is correct.
So again, if you could summarize because this is when I say this project, the totality of the project is a huge project. I mean, and this very specific portion that is under the purview of the Public Improvement Commission. So Connor or William, if one of you folks could just summarize the work that is being requested by the Public Improvement Commission to authorize. If you could just sort of distill it down, it's the traffic signal improvements, the curb cuts. Rather than me saying it, you as the petitioner, could you summarize?
Yeah, William, feel free to jump in, but yes, we're asking for approval for the curb cut as well as the change to the traffic signal.
As well as the addition of the crosswalk and the street striping that has been submitted.
Yes.
And then just for clarification, Mr. Chair, the MassDOT MASH waiver is in hand. They actually did provide the actual approval to the request.
Thank you, William. I just wanted to clarify, because this is a public hearing, as to what elements or aspects of your broader project is being asked to be approved by the Public Improvement Commission of today.
Yes, correct. So this matter is the modification of the sidewalk at the location of the stairwell that we are creating to allow the drop down to the street level, the modification of the curbing at that location, the installation of the street striping for the crosswalk to cross Chelsea Street to meet the existing crosswalk on the opposing side, as well as the signal modifications that have been detailed to allow for the safe crosswalk.
Thank you, William. At this point, I'll open it up for comments or questions by fellow commission members.
I want to thank the team for meeting with myself as well as my colleague Patricia Mendez to review these plans and our outstanding comments, as well as the response to our outstanding comments, especially about the apex ramp condition at this intersection. And we do still have some reservations about the proposal to keep the apex ramp, because apex ramps expose pedestrians at that corner while they're crossing. We recognize the comments made by the consultant that this condition may be compliant. However, we still have reservations about the safety of such an important community benefit. So we look forward to working with the team down the line to understand this crossing a little bit more and to explore ideas that could improve the safety of this crossing down the line.
And if I may respond, Mr. Chair?
Please.
I just want to confirm that, yes, we have spoken with the Disabilities Commission, and we understand that while this may be a compliant condition under the technical requirements, it is a less than ideal situation from their perspective, and we are happy to continue to look at this opposing corner. It's currently outside the scope of this project, but we're happy to continue to look at that and see what changes could possibly be made in the future to bring it into an even better condition, even though it does meet minimum compliance requirements. So we're committed to continuing that conversation.
Thank you, William. I appreciate that. And speaking from my position, the introduction of this opening on the bridge railing is going to promote additional pedestrian traffic, which is going to amplify some of the weaknesses that may be embedded basically within our minimum standards. So I strongly encourage you to continue the conversation and to make sure that these plans are as optimum as possible, not to keep that as an item for downstream work, because the commission is being asked to approve this with the railing open. More people are going to appear at this crossing. So I strongly recommend that you take the steps that is necessary today to accommodate what the city team is asking of you all to do. That being said, any further comments by fellow commission members? Hearing none, comments by staff.
If I may,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair, I don't know to what extent BTD's been consulted on this, but just piggybacking on some of Sarah's comments, we have a very sweeping turn radius at the south corner, to the left-hand corner of 16th Street. It seems like it would be potentially a missed opportunity if we're doing a lot of curb work out here to not sort of right-size that and tighten that up. And I think in adjusting that for, safer turning speeds, it looks like you could also potentially improve the alignment of that apex ramp so that it, aligns better with that crossing across 16th Street. So I don't know to what extent that's been explored. I apologize again if there have been previous conversations with BTD that I wasn't present for, but just that occurs to me as I'm looking at this. And again, wonderful set of improvements being proposed, and it would just be a missed opportunity if we are mobilized out here already, if we don't address some of these other safety concerns, I think.
Thank you, William, and I'm going to assume you are speaking on behalf of the Transportation Department through Ms. Cording as the commission member for this hearing.
Yes.
Maybe it's a public record, so I'm just going to. Okay, so at this point, comments by PIC staff.
We have a few members of the public and interested parties who wish to speak. Gabriela Coletta, first, please. Go ahead, Gabriela.
Hi, good morning.
Todd, could you moderate the sequence of comments that is to be said, and if there are any city council members and government staff, could you please accommodate them to speak first?
Yes, Ms. Coletta from Councilor Edwards' office, and then after she speaks, Old Wise One may speak.
Also, those who are not speaking, if you could mute your speaker, it will minimize feedback. Thank you.
Good morning. Just confirming everybody can hear me. Great. Okay. Good morning, members of the commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Gabriella Coletta, and I'm here on behalf of City Councilor Lydia Edwards. It was our in-office intention this morning to call for a deferral for additional community feedback due to the fact that the last public engagement meeting on the larger Little Mystic planning process, to our knowledge, was held in March of 2019. However, after further review, we agree with this proposal going
Excuse me, Ms. Coletta. I'm not sure whether we are picking up. I'm not sure whether my microphone is bad. Todd, are you able to hear Gabriella properly from your end?
Yeah, she is. Her volume is a little bit low, but I can hear her. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try to speak a little bit louder then. So after further review, we agree with this proposal going forward today, provided the following. Additional consideration be given to introduce the changes that the gentleman from the BTD just provided for the south corner, including a potential additional sidewalk, as we think that that will improve safety in that intersection, as well as an information session held by the BPDA presenting these plans to the community with clear direction and timeline outlining the next steps of the Little Mystic planning process, which is the Conservation Commission. There are ways in which the community can provide meaningful feedback and comments within the Conservation Commission process, and we feel as though this is the most productive way to engage the community moving forward. Charlestown has always been and continues to be a highly involved community when it comes to issues related to transportation and the public realm. In this spirit, we believe in continued transparency to bring their perspective to the table, and thank the BPDA and the PIC for agreeing to hold an informational meeting expeditiously within the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Old wise one, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me? I'm Dan Jaffe. I'm a resident in Charlestown. During the dialogue with the mitigation process, it was looked upon as there'd be a second crosswalk here on the south side of 16th Street. So the quantity of population that is going to be utilized in this space is going to be quite intense. So from a safety perspective, as well as the ability to move people effectively across, it would behoove us to have that second crosswalk from the other side, instead of allowing people to take a jaywalk across, because it's what they will do, and they're more at risk of being hit at that point. Does that make sense?
Ms. Cording, would you like to respond to the concerns raised by Mr. Jaffe?
Yeah, I think this is kind of similar to the point that William raised, right? Like, we're trying to shorten that crossing, right? And I think that the community request would be that there are two crosswalks there. Either way, that is better accomplished by the radius here tightening up. And so if it is impossible for whatever reason to provide the second crosswalk, then this crossing being shorter, now that it's mandatory to get to the only crosswalk available, is all tied together. So it's about making the ramps as accessible as possible and as perpendicular as possible, and making the crossings as short as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Cording. Any other additional comments? I think there may be another person, Mr. Rhyming, that is.
Yeah, Jason Ruggiero from the BPDA, go ahead. You may be muted, Jason.
Am I unmuted now? Yes. Okay. I just want to piggyback. My name is Jason Ruggiero. I'm a community engagement manager with the Boston Planning and Development Agency. Thank you, members of the Public Improvement Commission, for allowing me to speak. I just want to piggyback something that Gabriella Coletta said from Councilor Evans' office. We've been in close communication with Gabriella and the Councilor. And the BPDA is definitely committed to holding an information session as it relates to this project. Today's decision is just a small part of a larger community benefits package that we in the community are very excited about. So we feel strongly that today's decision should advance, and we look forward to engaging the community in their participation in the overall project. So happy to answer any questions, but we look forward to talking to the community more about this.
Thank you, Jason. Amy, is it your opinion that if we are entertaining a second crosswalk to supplement the comments of tightening the radius, that would definitely alter the PIC plans that are here? So would that require an amendment to the plans that are being shown for the purpose of this today's hearing?
Yeah, well, I think that there's two comments here. The curb coming out is and then the new crosswalk. I think that there's probably some level of evaluation to what would take to get another crosswalk in there because there's other implications there. So I think it's kind of twofold. What is the answer about the second crosswalk? And then either with the second crosswalk or the desire to get everybody to this cross and prevent diagonal crossing, we want to tighten this up to make it as short as possible. The modification to the plan would be on the radius at that corner. But I think that is all the subject of the things that were being looked at with Sarah's comments about the ramps, William's comments about the radius, and then the community's comments about the crosswalk. I think it's actually all one thing, but the impact would only be on the one opposite corner of 16th Street.
Mr. Epperson and Mr. LeBlanc, William and Connor, would you be able to look into that comments raised forth by the members of the Transportation Department and others at today's hearing and resolve those issues within a couple of weeks? Or will that be an issue for you folks?
I'm concerned respectfully that may be an issue. We're now talking about touching the curbing of the two existing opposing corners. That's quite a bit of additional work added to the scope of this project that already has very limited budget as it's associated with, public agencies who have limited funds associated with this. I'd like to defer to the technical expert, HDR Rock, if he could chime in. I know that we've looked at this quite a bit, and he has some cost estimates as well as to what would be required to make these modifications. And then he also has done some traffic studies to kind of show what those modifications would do to the traffic flows along Chelsea Street. So Rock, if you're on the line, I would appreciate your technical perspective here. Rock, we can't hear you if you are speaking.
Rock, you may be muted.
Discording while Mr. LaRochelle is trying to get the audio AV stuff sorted out. Is it your thought to, because Mr. Epperson, I feel awkward whenever we are trying to manage public safety and the cost of doing projects, okay? If I would like to get some guidance from the members, from the commission members, from the Transportation Department as to what the appropriate next steps should be at this point in time, because again, the caveat being when that bridge railing gets open and when this gets implemented, there will be more pedestrians crossing at this location. And I believe it is the interest of all parties to ensure that a safe and accessible project comes out from the hard labor of all of you folks. So those are my editorial comments. Rob, Mr. LaRochelle, are you able to add any comments as requested by Mr. Epperson?
Hi, this is Amy Blake Baldwin calling. He may be trying to call back in. I saw a 603 number hang up, so maybe he's still working on it. I apologize.
He's presenting.
Yeah, the computer's attached. I don't know if the sound is working properly, so he may be dialing in.
Ms. Cording, your thoughts to guide the commission?
So, I mean, this is a tough one, right? Because the comments that we're making, I think are kind of in line with what we've been hearing back from the community and will be the subject of what my guess is upcoming community outreach and commenting. So our comments are the desire to make these crossings as short and as accessible as possible. But you know, what's within the scope of this project or what can be done is a different question, right? So like, I think that during this process, there were some comments from Active Transportation and the Disabilities Commission about ramps and ramp questions. And I think largely what we've heard back is that it is not in the scope or limits of this project. So I think the stuff that we're layering on that are the safety improvements here that everybody wants. It's how we would accomplish that if that's the case, and if it is not done in this project, right? So I think it's more that I think everybody agrees that these corners could get better, but if it's not here, then you know, how are we going to accomplish this?
And Mr. Chair, if I may, while I am concerned that we're not going to be able to fit this additional work into the scope of this project, I can commit that we will continue to look at this, pursue additional funding opportunities, coordinate with the Transportation and Public Works departments to see if there are future opportunities here for us to make some additional improvements. It would be my own personal preference for us to move forward with creating this connection point that does not exist currently, recognizing that, you know, maybe there are some additional improvements in the future that could be made. It would be sad for me to see this not move forward because of this additional scope. Again, we're not touching the opposing side of the street in those existing conditions, and I'm afraid that's too much work to add to the scope of the current project.
Amy, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now, Robert. Thank you.
Apologies for the technical issues. It's always a challenge. All right, let me see if I can recap here. So this particular corner, we were not looking at any improvements to this corner here because it was designed to actually pass a bus making this movement here. And so if you go back to, bear with me a second here. So when looking at a standard bus making this corner here, right now that corner is very, very tight for that vehicle to actually make that maneuver without crossing into opposing lane of traffic over here. To make some of the improvements that were being recommended was to tighten up this radius over here, and in doing so, that would likely push these folks out into the opposing lane of traffic, resulting in an unsafe condition. To address one of the other questions, this corner over here would end up being very much the same situation, where if you look at this is treated as a right turn only here for people taking this northbound right onto 16th Street. We have been in communication with BTD. They've had several looks at our plans, the signal modification plans, as well as striping. And so they're very aware of the improvements that are being proposed at this intersection here. To tighten up this radius beyond what you see here, you would end up with a similar condition where a bus taking this movement here would end up in that left turn lane coming out westbound from 16th Street. Furthermore, in looking at any improvements to make this crossing here, if I understood the comments properly, I think I did, William, is that correct? We're looking at a crossing here. There is no sidewalk on this side of the road, so to actually make that happen would require a further break of this existing guardrail, the bridge rail that's here, and creating either a cantilever or a retaining wall structure that would go down to the park below to carry the sidewalk down to this crossing here. One of the things that I do want to talk about is the discussions that we've had with Mass DOT relative to proximity to the Tobin Street Bridge piers. And so what Amy talked about earlier is this yellow area represents the foundation that is underground. So that's the foundation. You can't see that from ground level. So that is MassDOT property. And then you have the bridge piers, which are here. So those are the things you can see sticking out of the ground. And we've designed this thing to be as close as possible to that thing, to the bridge pier and the foundation, within 6 feet of that foundation and 16 feet of the bridge pier here, and 11 feet here, which was set to basically allow maintenance and access through that in perpetuity for MassDOT and others who are going to be needing to get in here to rehabilitate bridge piers as part of that project. This, what we did from the original design, if you remember some of the concepts that were originally developed, this crossing was actually over here originally, which resulted in a very sharp corner here to actually make that crosswalk more like that. What we did is we pushed it further north as far as we could, maintaining these desired offsets that MassDOT was looking for to make this crossing here perpendicular and as short as possible. The other thing that we did is we switched the stairs for the ramps, and this is actually consistent with the original concept that was presented back in 2019. It was developed and presented to BPDA at that time, I believe. In doing so, what this did is it allowed us to actually create a shorter, minimize the footprint of this overall structure, since that if you had to start the ramps here, you would basically take this box. You would have to take this box here and superimpose it here to actually make that work. And while that may seem a simple task, what would end up happening is there's a fair grade from the existing pathway over here to get up to the stairs here, to the ramp system here. I think resulting today is about a 3.5% grade to get here. And if we have to extend that and swap that out, it does two things. It restricts access in this area, because you're going to end up with a wall here for the ramping system. So it makes access to the foundations, the footings, very difficult in this area, where right now, where the stairs touch down, you're done. And then this remains open here for access to the bridge in the future. But it also results in having to steepen up the grade from here to match the path, which may indeed exceed 5%. So it makes it a very difficult crossing from here down to match the existing pathway that's there. If I could,
Brock, if I may interrupt you, I just want you to focus or not focus, address the comments or concerns that were raised by fellow commission members and members of today's audience. So let me see if I can summarize those comments. 1, apex ramps versus 2 ramps. That's issue 1. If you're putting 2 ramps, then the curb radiuses on both sides may have to be adjusted. So I would appreciate if you could help guide the conversation as to why an apex ramp is the only option here versus 2 separate ramps, and tightening the 2 radiuses. Those, and obviously the comment by the member of the audience who wanted a second crosswalk, and I believe you have said that if you put a second crosswalk, it needs a supportive sidewalk on the opposite side, which you don't have space. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so then the next logical steps would be to improve the crossing of 16th Street parallel to Chelsea Street, to make sure that crossing is as narrow as possible so that people may not jaywalk as suggested to get from one side diagonally through this intersection. So what do you propose to respond to the comments that have been raised by members of the commission and the audience member?
I'm not sure that I understand the jaywalking comment. Maybe I misunderstood that. We, right now,
not from that side, from the, since there's no north arrow from the bottom side of the screen, if someone wants to, from your southwest corner, assuming it is north-south, southwest corner, orientation of the screen. Thank you. From there, if someone wants to get to the bridge rail opening, okay? So that might be the concern. I don't want to speak on behalf of the person, the gentleman who provided testimony. So,
that is correct, sir. That is correct, sir.
I thought I would be able to capture what you're saying. So to minimize that jaywalking, and as suggested by Mr. Moose from the Transportation Department, how can you tighten the crosswalk that is not touched as your project, the one that is parallel to Chelsea Street, so that you minimize the tendency for jaywalking? Plus addition of so Amy, can you take take the essence of this conversation because all of this is dominated in the domain of the Transportation Department? I mean, Amy Beanie is calling commission member from the Transportation Department.
What do you want?
No, Amy, can you guide the conversation because the second crosswalk is going to be a function of curb radius.
Right, so I think this is all the same thing again, right? So it's that if the second crosswalk is a non-starter, then it's what would make this better and safer is to pull in that curb line to the extent possible while still allowing for all of the vehicles that need to make this turn, I don't think that without evaluating what these implications are, it's going to be obvious what the changes would be here. But I agree that it would be changing and modifying both of these corners, right? Once we touch one, we touch the other because of the ramp. So that we are adding, even if we leave the bridge side alone, we are adding 2 additional corners with 2 additional ramps to this project that is not within this scope of work. So I think that the comment about what needs to happen on the opposite side is a question of if this can't be done in this project, then, I think is what happens next. So that it's more that the bridge side, if we cannot have the second crossing because of what it causes to structure and all that stuff, then the tightening of this, if it's not in this project, when and how could we accomplish something like that?
So Amy, what would be?
Can I say something? Can I quickly say something?
Please.
There is space to make a platform there. It would have to be structurally built. It is not such a big deal to make a proper sidewalk along the whole edge. It is physically possible. Yes, it adds cost. There's no doubt about it, but it is physically possible. You have a drop-off of about 12 feet there. So you have to build structure of 12 feet plus a foundation underneath it. That is all that's required here to make this possible.
Ms. Cording, what would your recommendation be based on the comments that has been expressed by your department, our fellow commission members, and the members of the audience?
So my recommendation is that making this crossing better is important. But I cannot add, right, I have to work within the bounds of what this project can do. So I think it's more of a question of that, if we're hearing from this project that this can't be done, then I think it's a question about what happens next in order to find a home for this work. But yeah, I think it's more that we've all made the comments about what would improve this. And I think what we're hearing back is that this project can't accommodate that level of scope creep. So I don't know what the correct answer is here. I think that all of the comments by both the community and the transportation department are valid and viable accessibility comments and concerns, similarly to the ones that Sarah and Active Transportation has made in the past. But I do think that we can't, I don't know how to say what can or cannot be performed as a function of this project.
If I could, Amy, I don't think there's anything that we're proposing here that precludes any potential future work on the opposing corners here and here. This part of the intersection here, one of the things that we put together in the Apex memo that was circulated was that, this under the criteria set forth under the CMR does meet those requirements because it's a wide radius, and for that matter, understanding that an Apex ramp is not ideal, but under those criteria, it is acceptable. And so we were not proposing any improvements to this corner at all, other than putting in that next leg to the crossing. In the future, if this was to be done, I think we put an estimate of over $100,000 on it to actually make these improvements here, to split out those ramps. The requirements of the work, Kara, would require some drainage improvements, curbing improvements, relocation of lighting, possibly signals, and reconstructing all of this sidewalk, which was recently constructed, I think, in the last 10 years. As well as then going ahead and reconstructing all of this. Again, I'm not sure how much more we could tighten up this radius here. As Amy was indicating, we would have to take a harder look at the engineering requirements to actually make that movement to see if we could actually tighten that up without resulting in significant issues with busing traffic going into this lane over here for the left turn out of 16th Street. I hope that clarifies, and thank you for the redirect, Carl. Amy, was there anything else? Amy Baldwin, that I missed here?
I
Now
think
you're
you
muted.
covered, no, I had to unmute, sorry, moving the mouse around. I think you've covered everything that we are focusing on this project. We're doing what we can within the constraints of budget and property lines and easements and jurisdictions and existing structures to try to make this corner as safe as possible within a great number of constraints. The goal is, to betterment of the community for this access for the Harbor Walk. As William has indicated, this is the first step in a number of other steps that are happening. And what we're doing is we think is beneficial. I'm looking forward to enjoying this area as well. We're doing what we can to mitigate speeds and traffic down Chelsea Street by adding striping. And we're just doing our best.
Okay, Ms. Baldwin, to bring this thing to some sort of a thoughtful point here, a couple of points. Councillor Lydia Edwards, staff person, requested ongoing dialogue between the community and the BPDA/Massport team, and I'm going to assume that you all are agreeing to that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Wonderful. Second part, opening the guardrail is going to introduce, I'm just going to dumb it down, in my head, to that opening, not the ramp system. That opening is what's going to allow more people to cross this intersection. And right now, you all have a concern about budget limitations or scope creep. That is, that's your statement. And there's additional thoughts as to that more might be done, more can be done to make this crossing safer. And as long as there's ongoing dialogue between your teams, that would be the Massport BPDA team and the Boston Transportation Department, because this all boils down to pedestrian safety, that the conversation is fertile, ongoing, so that all parties do what needs to be done, because at the end of the day, we are all trying to serve the betterment of our city, Charlestown residents, and everyone else who is going to come here to cross. So hopefully we, the Public Improvement Commission members, have your commitment to having two ongoing conversations, one with the community and one with the Transportation Department, because at the end of the day, we don't want this to become a pedestrian safety issue. Let me say it like that. We don't want this to become a pedestrian safety issue. So that being said, both William and Connor, I hope you all are okay with that sort of articulation from the Commission before I take this to the next step.
Yes, Mr. Chair, we agree and do commit to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Thank you, Ms. Lepperson. At this point, I'd like to, are there any further comments by fellow Commission members and or members of the audience? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve a joint petition by the BPDA and the Massport Authority for making of the specific repairs in Chelsea Street as read into the record by the chair.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Motion passes. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everyone's engagement and comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, public hearing number 6 on a petition by Dorchester Michaels LLC for the acceptance of a pedestrian easement adjacent to Freeport Street, a public way, Dorchester, located on its easterly side at the side of 780 William T. Morrissey Boulevard, generally northeast of Morrissey Boulevard. This was brought out of new business on April 15, 2021, as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department Engineering Division Pedestrian Easement Plan, Freeport Street, Boston, Dorchester, one sheet dated April 27, 2021.
Good morning. Steve Moderano from Bowler here, representing Dorchester Michaels LLC. I'll be very brief. We are going to request a continuance. There was a comment to coordinate with the tree warden. The tree warden is scheduled to go out on site next week to take a look at the trees, so we thought it would be wise to just let them complete their study on the street trees that need to come down as part of the improvement project, and hopefully after their visit, we're in a position to move forward.
Thank you. So a 2-week continuance, will that be sufficient?
We believe so. We'll report back to staff after the tree warden's inspection, but we're hopeful that it's 2 weeks. We'll be back and ready.
Thank you. I'd like to get a motion to continue public hearing number 6 for 2 weeks for May 13th.
I'll make a petition, or I'll make a motion to continue public hearing item number 6 is read into the record by the chair till, what was the date?
May
13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Hearing none, motion passes to continue public hearing number 6 for 2 weeks. Next item on the agenda, public hearing number 7 on a petition by the same people. Dorchester Michaels LLC for the making of specific repairs within Freeport Street Public Way, Dorchester, located on its easterly side at the site of 780 William T. Morrissey Boulevard, generally northeast of Morrissey Boulevard, and consisting of curb realignment, sidewalks, and roadway reconstruction, as well as new and relocated pedestrian ramps, specialty pavements, street lighting infrastructure, street trees, landscaping, and driveway curb cuts. Introduced under new business on April 15th, as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division Specific Repair Plan 780 William T. Morrissey Boulevard, Freeport Street, Dorchester, 2 sheets dated February 12, 2021.
Again, Steve Moderano from Bowler here for Dorchester Michaels LLC. We're also requesting a continuance to allow the tree warden to do their studies next week, and continuance request to May 13th.
Thank you, sir. Give a motion to continue.
I'll make a motion to continue public hearing item number 7 is read into the record by the chair.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstained? Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. We'll see you folks in 2 weeks.
Great, thank you very much.
That concludes the public hearing segment of our today's agenda. Now moving on to the new business section. First item, new business item number 1, Columbus Avenue, Dixwell Street, Well Avenue, West Walnut Park, Academy Road, Armory Street, Bragdon Street, Roxbury. Specific repairs on a joint petition by the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority, the City of Boston Transportation Department, and City of Boston Public Works Department.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. This is William Moose from the Boston Transportation Department. I'll be presenting today. I'm joined by Eric Shire from the MBTA, the project manager of the Columbus Avenue Bus Lanes project, as well as Valerie Chia from Howard Stein Hudson, who's been doing the work on the engineering and design of this. A quick bit of background. What we're bringing here today is sort of a phase 2, let's say, of the work that's already underway on the Columbus Ave corridor from Franklin Park at Walnut Ave to Jackson Square. As part of that project, the MBTA, working with the city, is introducing bus priority infrastructure, bus platforms, and we were already reconstructing many of the ramps along the corridor to bring them into ADA compliance. However, there were some other ramps that didn't provide immediate access to the bus infrastructure that was being constructed that we later decided to take on to make the entire corridor ADA accessible. And as part of that, we also were looking for opportunities to make further improvements to pedestrian safety as well, as we bring this up into ADA compliance, consistent with many of the concerns that we've heard from the community about pedestrian safety along the Columbus Avenue corridor. So what we're looking at here that Valerie has up is the proposal for a number of the minor street crossings at Columbus Avenue. Anywhere that we have an unsignalized location, we're showing a raised pedestrian crossing. So the first one is Cleve Street, a private way. And I'll just note, I don't know that this particular street was in the agenda item. I think all the others were, but Cleve Street I didn't see in the agenda. That might have been an oversight on our part when we submitted the petition. But
The work's on Columbus, not on Cleve, so.
Good to hear. In that case, in this location, because of the very narrow sidewalks and existing buildings, to replace the existing apex ramps here with perpendicular ramp, we are showing curb extensions, standard 6-foot curb extensions into Columbus Avenue, in line with on-street parking that is both in advance of and after Cleve Street here. So that curb extension will help us create the grading that we need to make this accessible crossing. It'll also improve visibility and harden turns for vehicles here to make a safer pedestrian crossing. I'll also note that there is an existing street light and an existing fire hydrant that are being proposed to be relocated into the new furnishing zone that's being created on that bump out, which has the additional benefit of removing pretty significant pinch points on the sidewalk. And I should just step back and say that we've worked very closely with the Public Works Department, Public Works Department's Street Lighting Division, Disabilities Commission on the review of these plans. So that's the Cleve Street location. Unless there are any questions here, we can move on to the next minor intersection. So we're headed sort of north on the corridor, inbound, if you will. And the next street is Dixwell Street. At this location, we are not bumping out. We're keeping the existing curb line. We're just replacing the apex ramps with these perpendicular ramps and a raised crosswalk here. There are some drainage structures, I think, that are being moved, if I'm not mistaken, but we have submitted these plans to Boston Water and Sewer for review as well. So I believe they're aware of these changes.
I also wanted to mention that we did not provide the bump outs here because of the bus platform that we're providing as part of the bus priority project. So they would not be able to fit because this 12-foot travel lane would be eliminated if we had the bump outs.
Yeah, thank you, Valerie. I'm sorry, Denise, Devlin, it looked like you maybe were going to say something.
Oh, I was. I figured I'd just wait a second until you were finished. Thank you. Yeah, we did get the plans, and I know you've been asking us for comments. We do have comments, and I will send them to you shortly, probably before the end of the week. Thank you for your patience.
No, thank you. We really appreciate that. We look forward to receiving them. So if there aren't further questions on Dixwell Street, we can move to the next minor crossing, which is just down the block. It's at Weld Avenue. One thing that I should mention is that Dixwell Street is also the street that provides access to the Mendel, or the Rafael Hernandez School, rather. Pickup drop-off happens on that street, so we have a lot of families and children crossing at that location, so all the more reason why we feel like the raised crosswalk there makes a lot of sense.
William,
yes.
William, sorry, can you go back to the Dixwell one again?
Of course. Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not imagining. Okay, so the structures you're seeing on Columbus Ave, is that the new MBTA platform or?
That is correct, Carl.
So are part of it, like if I'm coming out of Dixwell, is it locked? I'm just trying to understand the limits of the platform.
Sure, so you can turn right out of Dixwell Street, but the platform is intended to prevent left turns across Columbus Ave out of Dixwell.
Okay, so that was intentionally designed to that level of extent to ensure that the 30-foot Dixwell Street will forever be forced into a right turn northbound movement. Sorry, a right turn northbound movement.
That is correct, and Valerie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe what we're seeing here is like the actual platform where boarding would take place is sort of that more rectangular shape there with the where you see the right angle. And then what's after that is actually basically a small nose with poured concrete. And that, is not sort of an essential platform component, but it is there to, again, discourage unsafe turns across the bus lanes, the future bus lanes, and, the left turns onto Columbus Avenue. Exactly.
Got it. Thank you, William. Sorry for that.
No problem.
And it is mountable too, so if emergency vehicles need to exit out of here, they'll be able to drive over this without impacting the rest of the platform.
Great. Well, if there are no further questions at this location, I suggest we move to Weld Avenue.
Please.
The next intersection. Here we're seeing essentially more of the same. This is the sort of one-way pair of neighborhood streets along with Dixwell, and very similar conditions that we're proposing here. Again, generally keeping the existing curb line, although we are sort of tightening the corners slightly, the radius of those corners, and replacing those apex ramps with a raised crosswalk here. So I think, again, unless there are questions on that, we can move on to the next location, which is at West Walnut Park. So you all may be familiar with this location. There's a gas station to the left and a Dunkin' Donuts to your right. This is sort of a long diagonal crossing, non-compliant today, with a lot of safety issues there. And so to improve this condition, we're also proposing a raised crossing here. And again, if there are no further questions here, we can move to the next location, but do feel free to stop me at any point. So I believe the next location might be Academy Road, is that right? Yes. So this is Academy Road, further north on the corridor, approaching Center Street. This is a two-way street today that provides access to Academy Homes. This is a location where we actually had a lot of excess pavement that encouraged high speeds and led to an unnecessarily long crosswalk. There's on-street parking on both the approach and after Academy Road, so we are here showing curb extensions in line with those parked vehicles. It's already no stopping today approaching those corners, so we're just sort of formalizing that with these curb extensions, and that allows us to make a much shorter pedestrian crossing and to harden turns to basically make these turns take place at a much safer speed. And we did do auto turn analyses to make sure that we could accommodate emergency vehicles here as well.
William, at this location, is there on-street parking on Columbus Road?
Yes, Para. So approaching where you're seeing this new curb extension, there would be on-street parking up to the curb extension there, and then the on-street parking would resume on the sort of far side of that intersection. Exactly.
Okay. Second question, William. So let me make sure I summarize. Today, there's on-street parking. Now, during a snow emergency, what are the conditions? Is this what we call a snow arterial, meaning we get rid of all the on-street parking along Columbus Avenue, or is it a non-snow arterial? And the concern, William, is if it is a snow arterial, meaning all on-street parking has to disappear, now you have snow plows that are thinking that they can plow right by the curb and they smash into this neck down. Your thoughts on that, or the consultant's thoughts?
There's a street light that'll probably indicate that the curb comes out.
Yeah, so basically populate the little neck downs with vertical elements so that the snow plow doesn't mistake inclusions. I think consultant team knows how that, and just make sure that.
Yes.
So, thank you. Good.
Thank you for that, Para. Yeah, I believe at all these locations we're showing vertical elements on any place where we're doing a neck down, either in the form of a relocated street light or, T23, no parking signage. So there will be vertical elements on these.
Thank you so much, William.
Thank you. So that is this location, Academy Road. And then I think the last raised crosswalk that we're proposing is at Amory Street. So this is a two-way street. Again, generally curb lines staying the same here. No curb extensions into Columbus Ave at this location. We are tightening the corner radii slightly, and again replacing some very broken, poor condition apex ramps with this raised crosswalk at this location.
William, again, like totally stupid statements here. Wherever you are raising the crosswalks, I'm going to assume that someone has given a tiny bit of thought towards drainage issues so that water doesn't. So that's like a fundamental point, and I'm going to assume you on that. I think. Yes.
Thank you for that. We've gotten very extensive comments from Public Works Department on the grading of all of these locations, and as I said, we've submitted each sort of design milestone of this project to Water and Sewer, and we've received comments on earlier submissions from Water and Sewer that are reflected in these plans, and as Denise mentioned, we should be expecting other comments to arrive soon that will be integrated by the time we come to public hearing.
Awesome. I think that concludes your presentation, right, William?
There actually is one location that's signalized, so it's not. There are no raised crosswalks, but we are proposing some new crosswalks and ramps at Bragdon Street. So that's the final location. That's what you're seeing here. So this is a location where we coordinated very closely with the Boston Fire Department, Public Works, Disabilities Commission. We had some really good conversations with them on how we could accommodate a good path of travel for a good accessible path of travel, and taking into account also the needs of visually impaired pedestrians. How we could guide them across the new apron that's being created of the fire department here. So a lot of collaboration and thought went into this design. I'll point out a few things here. The ramps to page right across Columbus Avenue are new ramps. There was a crosswalk at this location, but there were no ramps, no pedestrian signals, and rather insultingly, there was not even a break in the median. There was a median at this location, and the crosswalk just ran into a median in the middle of Columbus Ave. So we are remedying that with a completely accessible crossing here with the appropriate pedestrian signals to help pedestrians get across safely at Columbus Avenue. The other ramps, so there are existing ramps at Bragdon Street on the north side that are being reconstructed to be ADA compliant. Similarly, there are ramps at the, we'll call it, it's not really the southwest corner, bottom left-hand ramp, I guess we'll say. The bottom left-hand ramp that is also being reconstructed. There is an existing ramp there, but we're reconstructing that ramp as well as the receiving ramp on the well, again, I'll say north side, but it's not really the north. I guess that's the west side of Columbus Ave. Yeah, there we are. And then the other new ramp that's being added is at that sort of corner there that Valerie's indicating. This is at the new Engine 42 location, and this ramp was designed in such a way that should an emergency vehicle ever need to make a turn from the farmost bay, like the rightmost bay, and get onto Bragdon Street, sort of headed, let's see again, southeast. Thank you. That can be accomplished without having to enter the intersection. So we are designing this at the request of the fire department for that ramp to be occasionally mountable in emergency scenarios, and the accompanying pedestrian indication, that black dot that you're seeing there, has been located in such a way that it won't be struck by a fire engine that's making that move. So I think that is the summary of this location. And yeah, we welcome any comments or questions from the commission at this point.
William, the crosswalk that was having a troublesome time for not having appropriate passageway through the median and to the other end, I'm going to assume that's going to be signalized.
That is correct, Par. This is actually all one sort of long rectangular.
So
yeah.
The clearance intervals from the stop bar all the way through, it's all calculated to ensure. Okay, good stuff. Awesome. Comments by commission members? Amazing project as always.
Thank you.
Hearing none. Comments by PSC staff or members of the audience?
No, all set.
Awesome. Hearing none. We'll mark this thing up for 2 weeks for May 13th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always. Last item on our agenda for under new business, 1-27 Boston Wharf Road, Congress Street, South Boston, pedestrian easement, specific repairs, projection license, earth retention system on a set of joint petitions by Seaport L5 title holder LLC and Seaport Square Development Company LLC.
Good morning, members of the commission. My name is Dottie Sanchez from Petitioning Source, and I'm here on behalf of the petitioners. I'm joined today by Amy Creams of the petitioners, as well as Will Schrieffer and Nick Botts from Niche Engineering. Today, we are before actions related to the Health project support there, which is located on the L block on which the commission previously reviewed block out. The project will involve the construction of an 18-story mixed-use building containing office and retail uses, as well as a performing arts center. Amy will provide further detail on shortly. The project site is bounded by Boston Wharf Road on the west, Congress Street to the south, and portions of the new pedestrian way called Harper Way. In connection with the project, we are respectfully requesting approval of the following actions. The first is specific repairs within Congress Street and Boston Wharf Road, as well as a temporary earth retention system extending in Boston Wharf Road, a canopy license on Congress and Boston Wharf Road, and then a pedestrian along Congress Street. Unless there are any questions for me, I'll now turn it over to Amy to further discuss.
Yep, good morning. Well, I guess it's afternoon now, it's noon. Everyone's almost done. Thanks, Jody. The project is a 694,000 square foot, 18-story tower on top of a 3-story underground parking garage. The ground floor of the building has a public passageway through the building to connect pedestrians from Boston Wharf Road into the heart of Harbor Way. And level 1 of the building is primarily retail. Levels 2 through 3 will contain a large performance venue that we refer to as CPAC. That'll have both a 500-seat large performance venue and a 100-seat small performance venue. And the balance of the building is commercial office. The project's scheduled to break ground in August of this year. It'll be substantially complete mid-2024. The proposed first floor of the building on the Boston Wharf Road side was set back several feet from the property line to incorporate a series of steps and ramps to raise this side of the building as much as possible. This will allow for higher finished floor elevations for the lobby and retailers above the floodplain, while still providing inviting public realm that meets the existing condition along the public way. And then we have another ramp in the building to help navigate the 4-foot grade change around the building. The project has been closely coordinated with the Seaport Public Way project that encompasses the
Sorry, Amy, we are not seeing anything. I think that the gentleman, William Schraper, that is presenting, but we are just seeing a blank screen.
Yeah, I was seeing a blank screen too.
Wasn't sure whether you were hoping that we will be seeing something to match the articulation of your thoughts.
Apologies. Sometimes I have a little trouble with the Google Meets and getting it proper. Are you seeing
There we go.
presentation at this point?
Thank you, William. If you could mute your thing and then Amy can do her thing. That's better. Thank you.
Great. So this is a view from the building.
Sorry.
That's okay. From Boston Wharf Road, looking at the northwest corner. The last thing I wanted to mention before I turn it over to Will is that there's a separate public way project. This project, L5, will be setting curb and reconstructing public sidewalk. That will allow for the required cross-section to provide 2 protected bike lanes, one way on either side of Boston Wharf Road, which we believe is the current preference of the city agencies that are reviewing this project. Happy to answer any questions about that project, but that will be permitted and constructed separately from the building project. So I'll turn it over to Will now. Thank you. You're still on mute, Will.
Sorry, there we go. So I'm pretty much going to be going over the specific repairs that we're proposing along Congress Street and Boston Wharf Road. You can see here a rendering of the building that was being shown in site plan as Amy was kind of introducing the project. So for specific repairs along Congress Street, I believe it's still currently under MassDOT jurisdiction, but I know the plan is to turn it over to the city of Boston in the near future. So of course we want to go through the process and with the commission and make sure it's in accordance with all relevant standards for that pass over. As Amy had mentioned, we're coordinating this with the overall Seaport Public Ways project. So we're setting the curb. All the work that's in the roadway is going to be kind of separately permitted. That project's moving towards 25% design documents, and it'll be coordinated with city agencies and MassDOT agencies as necessary. So this curb line that you see here represents the latest of that coordination, including comments that were received through the specific repair, or through the PIC process. So there's 360 feet of specific repairs along Congress Street, proposing new cement concrete sidewalks, pervious pavers, pedestrian ramps at the intersection of Boston Wharf and Congress Street, as well as 4 street trees. We have well more than 8 feet of concrete sidewalk proposed here. I think just to the property line, it's about 12 feet. So we have a lot of good space for pedestrian walking here. Part of what's being proposed is a bump out for a future pedestrian ramp that will be incorporated with the roadway project. This is kind of similar to what was going on with the specific repair plan along Congress for 400 Summer Street, which is right across the road. At this point, we're going to be building that bump out, but we're not going to be incorporating a pedestrian ramp. That will be built as part of the roadway project. So this piece that the mid-block crossing on Congress will be built with a curb reveal. I won't be flush curb, and the pedestrian ramp won't be installed. That would be installed as part of the roadway project when that comes through. So, and you can see the entrance along Congress Street to kind of that raised path that Amy was talking about in the center of the street. There's a blue bike station that's being proposed adjacent to that bump out for the future pedestrian crosswalk. And we're including a proposed sign for wayfinding that wasn't included as across the street adjacent to 400 and 350 Summer Street. Wasn't included as part of those plans, but we were coordinating with Todd February and March, and it seemed, and we wanted to include it on these plans to memorialize it and include it. Seemed to be the cleanest way to do it. And that's generally what we're proposing to do along Congress Street. So moving on to Boston Wharf Road. It's about 400 linear feet of specific repairs along here. We have kind of the overall plan that shows the extent of that. And we also have a blow up with additional grading detail that really shows the level of detail and design that kind of went into the planting beds, the elevated crosswalk, and coordinating with maintaining that 8 feet of concrete sidewalk along Boston Wharf Road within the public way to maintain clean, good visual pedestrian experience. We're proposing 4 smaller street trees within these planting beds, but wanted to be able to incorporate them to kind of create that experience and continue that streetscape experience, though we are just pressed for space with everything we want to fit in. We have the raised crosswalk that we've committed to with Conservation Commission through resiliency measures, where we're trying to raise it as far as we can. The floodplain here basically extends entirely along Boston Wharf Road. I think it's 16.5, and we were able to raise everything up 9 inches above that as far as the entrances that are for the retail that are along this roadway. We're also proposing, as part of the specific repair work on this project, a small bump out near the left. So when the L3 project is constructed, that entire, and as part of the Seaport Public Way project, that's going to be a pickup drop-off lane that extends for fairly long distance, I believe about 160 feet between the L5 and L3 projects. We wanted to include pickup drop-off space for at least, I believe it's 3 cars at this point, to service that Performing Arts Center that's going to be included as part of this project. And that area will be continued and extended when L3 and or the roadway project comes through to finish up the curb that's being proposed here. That's essentially it as far as what we're proposing on specific repairs. We're also doing, and this is just a rendering that kind of shows that elevated walk along with the plantings that are going to be in there, providing that 8 feet and wide pedestrian path along the public way, while also providing the path up to the raised retail spaces that are going to be along Boston Wharf Road. Also included as part of the petition were temporary supportive excavation. So there will be tieback. We're proposing tiebacks that would extend underneath both Congress Street and Boston Wharf Road to be temporary, and they would be detentioned and abandoned in place after construction. And there's also a pedestrian easement and a canopy license being proposed. Pedestrian easement, both the pedestrian easement and the canopy license are along Boston Wharf Road, extending out into the public way for a portion of it. And for the pedestrian easement, there's just one small portion where we don't have that 8 feet of space within the public way. So the pedestrian easement's being proposed along the northwest corner of the building to memorialize and commit that full 8 feet of space to pedestrians for the future. And it would be extended generally along that pickup drop-off lane when L3 comes through, because we just will need that space to keep 8 feet. But for what we're proposing right now, really just the limit of work that we are proposing with these specific repairs. And that is our presentation and what we're proposing as part of this work. Leave it to the commission if there are any questions or clarifying comments that I can provide.
Thank you, William. Thank you, Amy. Any comments by fellow commission members? Hearing none, and I presume you all have done this a couple of times, so you should know what is before and always be a few steps ahead of the needs of the commission members. Any comments by ESC staff?
There are a few outstanding comments that were submitted by the BPDA. I understand that the project is going to schedule a meeting with Jill Zick to go over those comments, and we expect that they should be resolved shortly.
Yeah, same thing with transportation. We're meeting with them next week to go through all of our remaining little stuff.
Okay, if that being the case, we should be able to mark this thing up for 2 weeks. That would be May 13th. Wonderful. We will see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much.
At this point, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Someone please second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good day.